Alright, let's jump right into it. So, in this video, be working on the patch and these vehicles. We're already started here, so what I did was I searched Cambridge Police patch vector. Wasn't able to find anything, so I looked at just patch. Luckily, I was able to find a breast cancer awareness version. So I removed the ribbons from that, and now what I'm trying to do is find a font that will match this. I was not very successful on that, so I was like, I'm sure I can just find one that's pretty generic looking font. So testing some different fonts, I installed one, and it ended up working. It was a little bit bolder than the version I did have. So just getting it to space together somewhat close. So I use the original text, make sure that it lines up pretty close, and then I'll go ahead and edit the text. So there we go, we got Los Santos in there now. Thought about editing the center, but I couldn't think of anything that would have been better to replace that with, so. Or anything in the GTA universe. So we apply a black and white filter. We were going to do some color correction, or color replacement, rather, but as you can see here in a second, it comes out pretty fuzzy, and it's just overall doesn't look that good, especially in the center there. I don't know why it distorts it like that so much, but so instead we opted to manually do a white over that using the magic wand tool, and from there we'll apply another black and white, and we'll just forget about the center and color correcting it. Then I realized we need to invert it, but that was too bright, so we apply another layer on top of that for brightness and contrast, and we darken it down a little bit, make it a little bit more gray like it's shown in the photos. While I'm doing this, I have a photo of the car's high-res photo on the other screen. So they don't have any Tahoes, so I was just trying to figure out where I would place it. I think that's the best place. So from here, I'm doing some organization, going through, renaming layers, putting them in folders, adding which side of the vehicle they're on, and this will just help me in the future. Organization ahead of time will save you hours of headache later, so. Go through here. So I'd already made this base demo. Unfortunately, I didn't get a recording of that. But pretty much just a white outline using the polygon lasso tool, a black background, two gray bars, which are separate layers, and then you just use the fill tool to fill those in. And then the center is an additional layer that's a gray bar, and then we use a layer style gradient overlay to apply the black and white gradient there on either side. So just spacing out the text a little bit more, making sure that all the letters are spaced out pretty uniformly at the spacing I'd like. And then we're creating our master. So this is like our master guide that we always go to copy from. And that way we know that we're using the same resources and we're not messing anything up, or if we do mess something up, it's not going to be applied to all the other cars. We just always go back to this. So here I'm pulling up the Beaumont skins so that I can basically get some stuff from that. So I take the reflections from the Tahoe, and it's a different vehicle, so I have to basically start over. So you saw what I was doing there is I took the reflections, I trimmed them down to a rectangle, I rotated it, expanded it, and then I'm just going to come back to that in a minute. So working on the unit numbers, uniform spacing across the text again. So here we go, we're going to start the reflection, 45-degree angle. I'm using shift and the arrow keys. You can do diagonal, so I can do down arrow and right arrow, and I'm counting out 60 every time that I hit it. So those are all 60 apart. Then you'll notice I'm measuring on the left side so I can replicate that same distance on the right. So I measure using the arrow keys again, and then remember that number and do that same thing. So then I rotated it. My paranoia just got the best of me, and I was like, is this squared up? So I just double checked it is square, and then you can see me aligning the intersections there along the midline. So this wasn't turning out like the photos. They were too close, so you can see I'm respacing them. I'm changing them up. I moved them an additional 10 pixels apart more. Um, then I'm just trimming up around. So here I add a ruler down the middle, a guide down the middle, and then I'm deleting on the left side the right ones, and from the right side the left ones. And so that way you get that nice diamond shape. And that's pretty much it. So now we'll work on spacing the rear quarter panel. So I'm looking at some high-res photos right now on my second monitor, trying to make sure that I've got a good mental image in reference to the body lines and the tail lights and the sizing and spacing of everything. So then I'm going to add a URL, just like it shows in the photo here. Make sure I get the spacing right so it's not cut off. And then I realized I screwed up on the emergency 911. The phone was facing the same way on each side, which it shouldn't be. So I'm just replacing that on my master, on the Tahoe, and then I'll put that on the Explorer. And when I'm doing this, I'm when I do rotations and stuff, I again remember what the rotation degree angle is. So normally I'll pick easy to remember, like by the 1/4%. And so I can match those up. Then I'm measuring out for those URLs the distance from the W or the closest side of the door panel and how far out. Think of something like 90 pixels. So using shift and the arrow key. So I'm just working on my spacing, trying to get a good idea of where I want to line it up, what the degree angle is. So I'm rotating that to what the body line is. Moving stuff around, looking at the high-res photo, trying to figure out how much it needs to move up or down or height, whatnot. So I realize it's too big, so I'm going in and resizing everything, each component individually. And I'm turning down the opacity and making sure that they don't overlap or they don't allow gaps so the black doesn't show through. And this is a bit tricky because once you rotate something, if you were to extend it left or right, it's going to mess up the rotation again. So if you were to transform it, make the width further, it'll mess up your rotation. So you just have to go in and re-rotate it. And I'm doing that a million times, making sure that it's wide enough so it fits over the body panels, and then I can create a clip mask in the layers pane, a clip mask so it only shows where the white is. Then I'm resizing the black background, making sure that it's equal parts above and below and centered along the vertical axis. Resizing our Los Santos down a little bit, then creating that white cutout so that we can add the police text. Otherwise it would be hard to read. So we're going to resize this. Want to make sure that it's pretty much the same height. Pretty anal about this kind of stuff. So go in there, change them to white real quick so I can have a good contrast, and then I'm using the skew to so just messing with the skew for the white background. But yeah, I'll catch you next time.